Well, good morning, Southern Oregon, and welcome back to the Real Estate Show. So glad you could join us today. We have a fabulous interview with Jackson County Sheriff Nate Sickler and also Guy Giles Mutual Mortgage. So we've got a lot of great territory to cover and hope you'll stay with us. In the meantime, we do like to check in with our 3 counties locally and give you the market statistics week to week. So let's do that while we're waiting for Sheriff Nate Sickler and Guy Giles to get into the studio. Jackson County prices year over year this week were up 13% in the residential market. The average single family home in Jackson County this week costing $559,420. The number of solds year over year in Jackson County were down 15%. We had 51 closings on SOMLS this week in Jackson County residential. The number of listings year over year were up 12% in Jackson County this week. We have 814 active listings on SOMLS in Jackson County residential this week. Josephine County prices year over year were down 4%. The average single family home in Josephine County this week costing $430,667. The number of solds year over year in Josephine County were down 35% this week. We only had 18 closings on SOMLS in Josephine County residential markets this week. The number of listings year over year were up 9% in Josephine County this week. We had 417 active listings on SOMLS in Josephine County residential markets this week. Klamath County prices were down 9% this week. The average single family home in Klamath County now costing $305,100 in the residential market, Klamath County this week. The number of solds year over year were down 5% in Klamath County. We had 19 closings on SOMLS in Klamath County residential this week. The number of listings year over year in Klamath County were up a whopping 16%. We had 352 active listings in Klamath County on SOMLS this week. And that is saying something. So looking over all 3 counties, we do see the beginning of a trend. We've got all 3 counties up quite a bit. We've got 12% in the listings in Jackson County, 9% in Josephine County listings year over year this week, and 16% increase in the listings in Klamath County. So that trend is something to take note of, folks. It's going to end up being good for the buyers, and the sellers are going to have more competition, which normally the sellers don't get more competition until our spring market starts. But here we are in the beginning of the fall, and it's getting to have longer time on market for listings. And the prices are still a little bit soft. They're still up from where they were a couple of years ago, but it is an opportunity for someone. So let's say hi. Well, welcome back to the show, Sheriff Sickler. We're so happy to have you on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And Guy, thanks for bringing him.
Hey, glad to be here. Go Ducks.
So we have a lot of territory to cover today. Sheriff, how about if we start with you? And before we went on the air, we were talking a little bit about some of the changes that are happening, and we have an election year this year coming up.
Yeah, so for us in the criminal justice world, we're working through changes to Measure 110. So
which is the drug law?
Yeah, so back in February of 2021, it went into effect. I think it was passed in November of 2020, I think that's right. But anyways, it became having small amounts or user amounts of drugs or paraphernalia became a violation instead of a crime, meaning officers, sheriff's deputies, state police couldn't make arrests for small amounts of drugs. And the legislation kind of directed individuals or officers to give citations, to refer people to treatment hotlines, so to speak. So if they called the hotline, then they could get their citation basically waived or torn up, essentially. But that program over the last 3 years proved to not be beneficial, meaning I think there was about 9,000 plus citations issued over the last 3 years for what's called an e-violation, possession of drugs or paraphernalia or whatever. And about 70 people called the hotline and received a verified assessment. So pretty abysmal at direct.
And it included hard drugs, didn't it?
Oh yeah, no, that's all drugs. So that was cocaine, methamphetamine, fentanyl, heroin, you name it. Of course, marijuana is in a whole different category now because we've been basically decriminalized marijuana for many years in Oregon, but the hard drugs were not. And so, anyways, so this past in the short session, there was changes made to Measure 110 under House Bill 4002, and essentially on September 1st of this year, so a few days ago, it is now back to a crime to possess small amounts of hard drugs.
Wow. So how did that come about?
A lot of, I think,
because that's a big change for Oregon.
Yeah, it was really big. I would say that public's pressure, people being unhappy with the direction things were going in Oregon, from Portland all the way down, seeing the kind of the destructive wake that untreated or unaddressed substance use can have in a community. And there were groups that got together. I was part of one that was going to get we were going to have a citizen initiated petition, which is how Measure 110 passed, to repeal it. And there was a lot of momentum behind that movement and a lot of support from polling in Oregon that people wanted drugs recriminalized because what was happening wasn't working.
Yeah, so the great experiment failed.
Yes, it did. And, I think the legislature recognized that adjusting it or making a law in session would be better than letting it just get repealed all the way. So this is kind of again, this is going to be, I think, uncharted waters, but I think we are moving in a better direction. Is it perfect? No. But, is anything perfect the first try? Probably not. So we're hoping that, we're going to give this a try. I know there were a lot of arrests made over the weekend and, the Labor Day weekend.
Oh, yeah, of course there would be.
Because it started on the 1st, right? And so, so that's already started. And then we're ramping up for a deflection program, which is basically an avenue for law enforcement to direct people to treatment before jail. So in many cases, individuals struggling do need treatment. We don't have enough treatment in Oregon. And when I say treatment, it's not an inpatient treatment, but it's going to be, group settings, referrals to like the ARC or On Track or who our partners are in this deflection program. And, it gives a different avenue or a different door, so to speak, than just jail, depending on what the individual might be better suited for. And for us, from a criminal justice standpoint, there's always some, I guess we're always a little skeptical if these things will work because the individuals could take advantage of those treatment options right now. They could just walk in and get the same basically services that deflection is going to offer. But this kind of motivation, we're hoping either to kind of go through the criminal justice system, maybe go to jail or have to go to court or go to this non-criminal justice involved program instead. I guess from a law enforcement standpoint, if we can keep people out of our system right now and they have success, hey, that's a win-win. If they can get into treatment and then not reoffend or not need criminal justice resources, that leaves, more, I guess, resources for other things in our system. And currently, we have a couple challenges. As we know, we have jail space is always a challenge in our community.
Yeah.
And right now, even a bigger thing is public defenders.
Wow.
Yeah, we don't have enough public defenders to meet the need in our community. So each additional criminal case is just going to add to that already overburdened workload.
Well, and from a real estate standpoint, we're so excited for the change in the law because from a human standpoint, from a human standpoint, it's wonderful that we're taking a little bit of a measured stance because this reform on Measure 110, like you said, it's just not being repealed, but it's being reformed. So that gives people, and a lot of these are on the street.
Yeah.
That was really influential in our homeless population. So, but it was hard to explain. We have a lot of relocators, and even the locals. It was hard to explain why all these people were on the street. But we have to take a break real quick, and we're going to talk more about that with Sheriff Sickler and Guy Giles. You're listening to the Real Estate Show, the ACE, and we're thankfully brought to you by John L. Scott, Ashland, and Medford, our local Rogue Valley Association of Realtors, and Guy Giles Mutual Mortgage. We appreciate your sponsorship every week, and we'll be right back with Sheriff Sickler and Guy Giles. Don't go away. Well, welcome back, Southern Oregon, to the Real Estate Show. So happy to have you back today. We've got Sheriff Nate Sickler and Guy Giles of Mutual Mortgage. I've got a great conversation going. So, Sheriff, before the break, we were talking a little bit about the reform of Measure 110 and how that was community-based, how some of that came about just because the citizens themselves were looking for change because Measure 110 was not having a good effect on our communities.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So, what we saw, locally and of course stories from other parts of our state is a lot of livability issues that impact, our community. And, whether that's open air drug use, increased homelessness, and a host of other things. It really did, I think, kind of open people's eyes to some of the things that were going on, but just now at a much larger scale. And so I think when, the community gets, I guess, disenchanted with the way things are going, they kind of speak up. And, the polling showed overwhelming support. I want to say it was like 70% of Oregonians wanted something
70%.
done. I believe. Yeah. And don't quote me to
Wow.
that exact number. I could get it for you, and maybe I'll look for it here in a second. But there was a lot of attention on this issue because of all the things that were going on. And you saw the, businesses in Portland, reportedly moving out of the area, people being frustrated that, have, homes or businesses that are near areas like, say, downtown Medford and the Greenway, where, there's lots of stories about, individuals having to clean up human waste from their stoops of their businesses or even in their yards. And then there's needles in the parks. And so none of that was good for what you would consider like you're, wanting to have a family oriented or, a nice business area. People don't want to navigate through that to patronize businesses and whatnot. So, just a lot of frustration. You saw businesses having to do capital outlay for security projects, to keep their stuff. Like, say, for instance, in our area, the car dealerships on Biddle and the RV dealerships.
Right.
You saw fences go up with, measures to keep people out because they experienced theft. And then, it's just not a good situation for anybody really. And, driven by, a lot of the homelessness population that frequent in those areas have substance use disorder or mental health disorder or co-occurring disorders together. And so, not being able to intervene in any way with the criminal justice system on some of these, low-level drug charges really did give kind of carte blanche permission for folks to do what they're going to do. And it really hamstrung not only the police, but the criminal justice system for guiding people into treatment who otherwise won't seek it. So
And that's really what they need, right? Is treatment.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah, I mean, all roads will lead to treatment. Even if you put somebody in jail, well, the one thing we can guarantee is they're likely not to reoffend while in jail, right? So they're not going to impact the community in a negative way. But if we want them to get out and have an ability to stay clean and then, not victimize the community further, treatment needs to be a part of that plan. And I think that's kind of where hopefully everyone will move to. And I know there's been a lot of resource enhancement dollars coming into our community and others to try to bolster treatment and resources, and we're doing a lot of creative things here. So hopefully we'll be able to reverse the path that we've been on and make some forward progress soon.
Well, and that's quite a big deal to go from where we were to kind of try to correct this through this reform. So are they giving you extra money and extra resources to jumpstart this? Because it needs a big effort.
Yeah, so the deflection program, which is the diversion from the criminal justice system but into treatment, there is a grant for about, I think the Jackson County was awarded about $1.2 million. And that goes across all the disciplines. So that goes from, we don't get money for, say, staffing for deputies, but we do have money to have somebody coordinate the program and to help get it off the ground. And there's money for some records because there's quite a few new rules around like expungements and other things that are going to create a pretty substantial workload. So there is some money to help support some of those programs and some of the aspects of 4002, but not for enforcement. And I don't know that we need that right now. So we'll see. And then there'll be opportunities to go back to the legislature next year and evaluate this program.
So were you surprised that the reform of Measure 110 passed?
A little. I mean, I think when the legislature looked at the options, this was probably the most palatable for the lawmakers to not have 110 repealed by the citizens, because that would have cut a lot of funding to some treatment because of the way it was structured. And so people that were providing services in the community off 110 money would then lose that money potentially, and then they would have to cut those services, which probably wouldn't be ideal because considering we don't have enough treatment resources as it is. So I think this was a kind of a middle of the road solution, and hopefully it'll work, or at least make it better.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good.
So is this reform considered the first of a two-step solution statute-wise, or are we just happy to have this reform passed?
Yeah, I think this is the start. I think it's going to be, it's in place. We'll see how it works. And then we'll, certainly bring concerns to, our legislators if things aren't working, or we find things that need to be adjusted. Those certainly could be brought up in the next legislative session.
And what are the projections for how long it's going to take? Like, how long is Jackson County giving itself to see minimal results?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to take 6 months to get data to see if any of the programs are working that are outside of our traditional criminal justice, path. So the deflection, I think it's going to take 6 months or so to see data. But as far as the other things go, it's going to be hard to gauge in our county because we're lacking other resources, such as, like I said, the public defenders, and then of course jail space on the back of that, because all these systems are built eventually on accountability, right? Go to treatment, or have consequences through the criminal justice system. And how many if we don't have jail space, we don't have the consequences, how seriously will the programs be taken? That's going to be the question for us locally.
Yeah, let's talk about the jail, because during the break you said if we had passed the jail statute, the jail law before, or the funding for the jail, you'd be moving into it now.
Yeah, so in 2020 when we went to ballot for a new jail, had that passed, it's our tentative schedule was to open in 2024. So, and it was like I want to say middle or third quarter. So right about now we would be opened, probably transitioning, honestly. And there might have been some delays because of COVID, but that was a tentative schedule. And, it's kind of, I was like, oh man, I wish we could have passed that, because we'd be in a new building. We'd have a lot more space, and we would be able to certainly support the criminal justice system in a much better way, and hopefully address some of the issues that have been systemic in our community due to the lack of jail beds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and can you explain a little bit to the listeners what those problems are that the new jail would solve?
Yeah, well, space being first and foremost. We've had years and years of not having enough space, which has created, a lot of recidivism with our offenders. For instance, somebody goes to jail, then they get released over and over and over, and they keep getting more charges while they're released. And those things, tax the criminal justice system, and then they ultimately use more resources from the public defenders. And, just to really surmise that is, the extra work created by not having adequate jail space has basically overtaxed the system now to where, now we're really suffering. So, years ago, and I'm not talking even in 2020, but had this been, been able to be addressed 20 years ago or 15 years ago, and we never had a shortage, and we didn't have all the failed to appears and all the, lack of teeth in our system, we probably wouldn't be in the same boat we are today. We wouldn't even, we wouldn't have this big backlog of work.
Well, and if the offender community knows that they're going to be released early, then that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, that's a big conversation, but there is a lot of truth to being able to follow through on the accountability piece. When you have that, people pay more attention for sure.
We're talking to Sheriff Sickler, Jackson County Sheriff, and Guy Giles, Mutual Mortgage. Thank you to our sponsors, Guy Giles, John L. Scott, Ashland and Medford, and Rogue Valley Association Realtors. We'll be right back, so don't touch that dial. Well, hey, Southern Oregon, welcome back to the Real Estate Show. We have a real treat for you today. We have Sheriff Nate Sickler and Guy Giles, Mutual Mortgage. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey, thanks.
So, Sheriff, before we went to the commercial break, we were just touching base about the jail and some of the services to the community it could provide. But you also mentioned fail to appear and the shortage of defenders, lawyers for people. Yeah. So can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, currently, in the last number I saw, we were right around 1,200 defendants in our community who do not have representation. So there's been, this has been kind of going on for a while to get that high of a number. But in Jackson County, we have the most significant problem in the state of Oregon as far as underrepresented defendants. And so what happens is somebody is accused of a crime, whether they're in jail or they're cited or whatever the case may be, and they can't afford an attorney, constitutionally, we provide them with one. And we don't have enough attorneys to meet the demand of defendants. And so you'll have these individuals who will be kind of moving in the community for up to maybe a year before they can get assigned an attorney. Because the higher profile or more serious cases get prioritized, and the lower level cases, sit and wait. And so that's problematic for a lot of reasons. But the big one is, these individuals, one, they can't move on maybe from their charge. And so that could be interesting, kind of a headache for them as well, but also the accountability piece in the system if people are just looming and there's no follow through. And so, obviously there's some work being done, at the state level, and there's been some good work done locally to try to address that as much as we can. But the fact of the matter is we don't have enough attorneys for these defendants. And so how is that going to look for the new Measure 110 reform and House Bill 4002 if all these people who are charged with drug can't get defendants, can't get attorneys? That'll be another interesting dynamic or a weak link in this process. So, we're going to pay attention to that. And then another ruling, that came out was the Bashar ruling. Started as a McShan ruling, but basically if you can't issue somebody an attorney within 7 days, you can't hold them in custody.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So, in Jackson County, thankfully, our attorneys, the DA's office have worked together to get this serious offenses representation. But I think there's only like aggravated murder and murder are the only charges that don't apply to this Bashar ruling. So, for instance, if somebody, did something heinous and we couldn't get them an attorney, we couldn't hold them in jail.
So why are we having a shortage of attorneys?
I think it's that's a big conversation, honestly. It probably stems from a lack of interest in criminal justice system over time, our geographical area, how busy we are, takes a lot of work. And then of course there's things in place by the state about how many cases attorneys can take. So there's a credit system, right? And that's part of the issue is they have 300 credits a year to work from. And once they use those credits, then they can't take on any more cases.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there's just a lot there, and that's too much to unpack probably right now.
Right. But that gives our listeners a little.
Yeah. So, in essence, you need more attorneys at 300 credits to do the work. Now they could get, maybe some attorneys could handle more than 300, but that's what they're paid through by the state.
Understood. Yeah. So there's
theoretically somebody could use up their credits by November, and then you have an attorney that.
Well, what happens is they did that before a couple of years ago, and then they made an adjustment to where they gave an allotment per month for credits. And then so what we find is, by the 10th day of the month, in many circumstances, the credits are, gone. So anyways, yeah, it's a big mess, big conversation later.
Wow.
Well, the desirability of our area is can't be beat. So we'll just have to see if some people in the real estate side can help to tempt more attorneys to our area.
Well, and home costs maybe, a part. So like when you have entry level jobs, because sometimes, people coming out of law school, they might be more attracted to, a district attorney job or a public defender job. And, because, not a lot of attorneys probably walk into what we think of as these big Wall Street attorneys day one, right? You kind of
work up to it,
work up and, who knows? And so, but then you have to attract, if you're attracting entry level into a profession, and so you usually get entry level wages, and our housing prices can be expensive here. So there's probably some difficulty in recruiting because of those things too.
Yeah, there are other parts of the United States where you can have a really good job and your house is half the cost. Yeah. So, but it's not as beautiful as Southern Oregon. We're really lucky.
Correct.
Yeah, to live here. We're talking to Sheriff Nate Sickler, Jackson County Sheriff, and Guy Giles Mutual Mortgage. Thanks again, you guys, for being on the show today.
Yeah.
There, you mentioned during the break, Sheriff Sickler, something about a community survey that you guys are going to be putting out.
So yeah, hopefully next week, hopefully Monday or Tuesday, we're going to start sending out a link to a survey, which is going to, cover a lot of things, focusing a little bit on the jail to find out where people are at, and their willingness to potentially support a potential service district to pay for the construction and operation of a new jail. But we also want to find out other things like, what they would like to see elected officials work on in our community, what they want to see law enforcement work on, trying to get an idea of underreporting of crime. So, we know there are a lot of people out there that have been victims of crime. Maybe it's minor crime, maybe it's a stolen bike, or maybe it's a, stolen propane tank or whatever. And they just didn't call because, they didn't think it would be solved. They didn't want to bother the police or, whatever, because they thought we were too busy. So we're trying to, figure out how much of that's going on, and then figure out a way to use that information to help address certain issues within geographical areas of our community. So I'll be working with the chiefs of police to give them the results of the survey for their particular areas. So we're really hoping that we'll get a lot of response out of that to help us do our job better, help us, serve Jackson County better.
Great. So Jackson County residents can look for that survey in their mail.
No, it'll be all electronic. It'll be coming out. Yeah.
Good
So
for
it'll
you.
it'll be easier. Yeah. It'll be like it's a Survey Monkey.
That's awesome.
So
That's awesome.
It'll be a web link, and we'll ask
hopefully you guys are able to get it on the news so people understand that it's coming, because I know that we're all freaked out every time something shows up. Should we click on it? Should we not click on it?
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, we did that. We did a media release last time. We had the company from Portland do the survey so people would know that it was legit. So we're going to do that again. It'll come out on our Facebook, and we're going to ask people to share our link so they can refer back to that, right? Basically, right? So it won't be, I mean, you could do whatever you want, but you could, if you were to share it, like say through your businesses or your contacts, your friends and family, or however you felt like doing it, you could share our link to our website or to our Facebook page that would explain the survey, the purpose, and
nice.
And then that way they could see that it's a legit source.
Yeah, and you have a great Facebook page, and you also have a new app.
It'll be there. It'll be, yep. And so, and then we're going to follow up with the survey. We'll be coming to different areas in Jackson County. We're going to try to hit, geographical locations of big county to hold some sort of, town hall or community meeting to talk about some of the things in the survey, and then talk about, what other things might be needed in those particular areas. So we have a lot of community outreach in the next, 3 to 4 months, which will hopefully let us know what direction we can go with a jail project. Great.
Well, thank you so much for being on with us today. Guy Giles, we had a big day today in the finance world. At 5:30 our time, the Federal Reserve Bank. No, it was the jobs report.
So it's the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I don't know how much time we have left in the segment, but I'll try to go quick.
Just 45 seconds.
What's that?
Just 45 seconds.
All right. Well, the numbers, they're still just getting weird about it. I mean, we missed on ADP this week by about 50,000 jobs, just under 50,000. And that's the one where all of our paychecks come from. So it's a little bit more reliable than what's called the BLS, or the Bureau of Labor Statistics. But that one happened on Friday, and literally we were supposed to get 192,000. We got 160,000. 100 of them were from our death birth rate. We've explained that a few times, and part-time jobs are really the only reason that anything ticked up. So
we can talk more.
We can expect lower rates
in our next section.
Okay. I thought I had to fight my way all through that information in 10 seconds.
Sorry. All right. Well, no, I'm still kind of spastic with the throw into
a whole other segment.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So, well, I'm gonna go get my kid.
Yep. Thank you, Sheriff, so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
See you
guys.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
You too.
Okay, Guy. Segment 4, starting in 3, 2, 1. Well, hey, Southern Oregon, welcome back to the Real Estate Show. We're talking to Guy Giles of Mutual Mortgage about the jobs report. that came out this morning and what that means for the interest rate changes.
Well, the good news is, you know, a lot of this stuff's happening again just in time for an election. But, you know, all things aside, we had the ADP numbers come out, and we ended up being just under 50,000 under expectations for that. It's basically the lowest since 2021. So they track new jobs, you know, how many people are working, things like that, just so we can get a gauge on what kind of shape the economy's in. And I feel that that one's a little bit more reliable than the one that the Fed relies on the most, which is the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or the BLS report. That came out this week also on Friday, and they had 160,000 was what was supposed to happen, and we ended up with 142. We've talked about this birth death rate a little bit, meaning they just guess on companies. You know, if a company started up, a hypothetical company started up, then they're going to get 20 employees, and the numbers always get revised. So I really don't know why they rely on having that in these employment numbers as much as they do. But supposedly that created 100,000 of these 142,000 jobs that we created. If you look at it over the last few months, it has been revised down by 86,000 jobs in 2 months. So that shows you how reliable that it really is. You know, so some other news on the headline, our unemployment went from 4.3 to 4.2. So, you know, that sounds like a good thing. But we lost 438,000 full-time jobs, and we gained 528,000 part-time jobs. So anything that we made up is part-time jobs, and people want to work full-time. They don't want 5 part-time jobs without benefits. So
I wonder if that's effective automation and AI. Is that?
I would like to think, but AI is not going to give you health insurance. So if you have 4 part-time jobs, I don't know where you're going to get your insurance from. So
yeah.
So that's the thing that I worry about is
people do want to work full-time for sure.
And I don't want to be, you know, all negative, but the economy's, you know, what kind of shape the economy is in speaks to the home loan rates. And that's what's important to me. That's what's important to my buyers. And
yeah, because if you don't have a good job, then how do you get a mortgage?
Thankfully, there's enough people with good jobs that can do it. I'm really dying to see this relief that is starting to come on the rates so that people can actually afford a house, because it's over twice as much as it was 4 years or so ago to buy a house. I mean, that's what these higher rates have done. And I would really like for them to come out with real numbers, you know, mention the fact that these are part-time jobs that they're creating, not full-time jobs.
Yeah.
The average hours worked for the whole country are 34 hours per week. It's not even 40 hours anymore. So I don't just want to get negative. I mean, shoot, if you can get 50 hours work done in 42 because of AI or something, or 32, that's fine. But I think that these numbers will really show in the long run that rates need to come down. That it's not as strong of an economy as we've been told for a little while, and the numbers are coming out. I don't care why. I'm just glad that the realistic numbers are. So we should see lower home loan rates. You know, I would assume, you know, in this next year in the mid-high 5s. We've been predicting lower rates for a little while, but now everything just keeps pointing towards things being a little bit lower. Even the oil prices will have a lot to do with how much economic activity is going on, and oil's down under $70 a barrel at this point. So that's a good sign. So things, I know for those of you that are just on the radio and not watching the YouTube, if you could see Alice's face right now, because it does seem a little counterintuitive.
Yeah. Oil is one of the things I watch on the financial news, and we're not we're not drilling more oil. So that's a different conversation though.
Yeah,
Is
so we're just
how did
using
it,
less of it. So that would show to me that there's a slowdown in the economy. And
okay, gotcha.
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
would explain it.
this stuff will show itself, you know, sooner or later. If it takes an election year for it to show itself, so be it. You know, I just want the truth, no matter what. Politics aside, I care about the people trying to buy a house. And anyway, so with the rates going down, that'll be a good thing. And so I do see that for the future.
So what, do you notice any changes in your business application wise? Are you getting more? Are you getting less?
I
Is it
had a
too
really,
soon?
really good month last month. I think everything's been a little stale since Labor Day, which is kind of weird. I'm still getting applications. I'm still writing, people are still writing offers and doing things, but I do believe that an election year paralyzes people. So whether you get one side power or the other side,
Oh, gotcha.
these people know what they got at that point. And just not knowing which, I mean, two just really opposing directions that this country could go, it paralyzes people in our market. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that right now. I still maintain that it's a good time to buy, because if you wait until the rates are low, you know, there's just gonna be bidding wars again. So, you know, get in, let's talk about it. I ran right before the show, I ran an appreciation chart for somebody that was a little bit on the fence, and just showing what that house will be worth, even being really conservative. It still makes sense to buy, and it buffers you from rent increases, from your landlord selling the house, just kind of whatever might be coming down the road.
Well, and Southern Oregon really does have a beautiful lifestyle. And so anything you buy in Southern Oregon does have a nice appreciation, even during chaotic times. I mean, the market here went down in 2023 because of the interest rates, and we're still down, but it's not permanent. You know, you can just feel it out there that the prices, they've gone up a little bit in some neighborhoods, but they're really poised to go up more. And I just don't know who's gonna buy the more expensive houses.
Other than selling in California, you know, I'm really hoping, you know, I'm just now starting to look into this thing that's been proposed with anticipated capital gains, you know. And I mean, I would hate for a 80-year-old widow that has a $400,000 house that she's in that's paid off to have to go take out a mortgage to pay these capital gains if she has no intention of selling that house. And I am kind of hearing some chatter about, you know, so I'll let people look into that on their own and come up with their own conclusions. But it does not seem like a good way. I mean, if you sell your house and you've made some appreciation on it, and there's some taxes due, that's fine. But if you're not selling it, to add that in, and I don't know if you've looked into that at all, but
I've
it's
just heard the
something that
rumors.
yeah, it's something that they're starting to talk about right now. So anyway, people want to do their due diligence on that, you know, coming into the voting season.
Yeah, well, that would be very burdensome to a lot of the citizens.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think we are going into a declining rate. You know, we're already seeing it. You know, it's not going to be a straight line down. There will be little jogs that it takes as it's working its way down. But
Right.
we're
It's not
definitely
a straight
having that
line.
trend at this point. So, you know, we've have a lot of really good programs over here. If you're self-employed and you're thinking that, man, I don't really show much on my taxes, we have some really good bank statement loans, and we also have loans that we're doing all these in-house now. I think we're the only ones locally doing them in-house, that if you're buying an investment property and it kind of stands on its own where it'll pay for itself, we'll qualify that property rather than you on the income. So, you know,
Oh, that's awesome.
payment, you can buy an investment property. So might not be a bad time to think about getting into that also.
Because, you know, Southern Oregon does have a fairly large amount of professional investors, professional real estate investors. Like, that's how they make their money, being a landlord.
And Yeah, if you need money, it might not be a bad way to look at it. The rates are not bad on these programs.
Yeah. Well, Guy Giles, how do people get a hold of you at Mutual Mortgage?
You can Google me or you can call. My direct cell phone number is area code 541-944-6987. And I answer it on the weekend. So if you need something, just call me anytime.
Well, Guy Giles, thank you so much. And thank you for bringing Sheriff Sickler. That was very interesting update that he gave us.
Yep. Thank you very much.
All right, Southern Oregon, have a beautiful weekend, and we'll see you again next time. Just a reminder, this broadcast will be repeated tomorrow, Sunday at 8 a.m. on 1300 a.m. The Ace. Bye now.